Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome, dear learners. I welcome you this course, Research and Publication Ethics. In this lecture, I will be discussing on unethical publication practices, precisely focusing on predatory publication practices and predatory journals. My name is Dr. Nirbhay Kumar Mishra. I am an assistant professor at Institute of Applied Sciences and Humanities at JLA University, Mathura. So before we go further to understand about the predatory publication practices, let's try to understand what we did in the last lecture. So we talked about the ethical violations. Okay, we focused on the research ethics, ethical values and principles much needed for the research and developments. We discussed research ethics and principles. We analyzed subject-specific case studies and the problems in terms of the violations in research practices. We comprehended the ethical violations through some infamous cases, in the research history. So in the end, we tried to understand the no ethical violation strategy. I analyzed on the idea of utility, on the idea of the duties of researcher in the research practices, and we analyzed the idea of virtue, and we also tried to understand the doctrine of double effect in terms how we can understand the intentions, means that we use for the ends that we want to achieve with our researchers, and the proportionality of the results in terms of the positive and negative results. So we try to understand these whole ideas in terms of the ethics of research and how we can avoid the ethical violations in research. So after this session, learners will try to understand about the unethical publication practices. They will be able to identify of publication misconducts. So far we have developed that kind of understanding in this course. Then they will try to understand, they will come to know about the unethical publications. We will try to understand the complaints and the appeals also, and then we will be focusing on the predatory publishers and journals, so that they'll come to know about the predatory publishers, and the characteristics of such kind of journals. What are the implications and results of the predatory publications. So they will come to know certain cases of the publication frauds that occurred in India and abroad. So let's try to understand, before we move to the idea of, publication, misconduct in terms of the journal publishing. So publication misconduct simply means violating standard norms of publication practices and ethics. It involves unethical behavior of either researchers or reviewers or editors or publishers in the forms of scientific misconduct in the publication process. So any kind of falsification, fabrication, plagiarism, ghostwriting, selective reporting, misrepresentation of data, or data falsification, data manipulation, salami slicing, duplicate publication, overlapping publication, or redundant publication. They all are the instances of publication misconduct in research practices when we talk about the publication practice. So let's try to understand what is predatory publication first of all, right? So predatory publication, when we understand the idea of the research and development, then we see that the predatory publication, it poses a serious problem for research and publication ethics. Even it poses the problem for the research developments in the research community. So according to Jeffrey Bell, Jeffrey Bell is very renowned scholar who actually first tried to worked out on this research problem, okay, and on this issue in the publication practice, namely predatory publication. Okay, he tried to work out on a list of such journals. Okay, so he was the first who drew the attention of research community to this challenging problem on his blog. Quotes, making it clear that they had exploited the open access publishing model and had attracted gullible researchers and faculty members to publish their research in their journals. So, of course, the open access model of research publication has attracted many researchers and faculties. It avails, gives opportunity to these researchers to publish their papers, but we have to understand that it has also created a big serious issue of predatory journals in the research publication practices. So let's try to understand. Okay, so how what kind of trends in the research development or the research practices precisely in terms of publication practices, what are the causes, okay, which are very responsible, and those who gave the chance for this predatory publisher to stand strong in the research community. Okay, so first thing is that the pressure that has emerged in the last 2 decades is of course about the publish or perish that we have been discussed also earlier. So publish or perish, the kind of pressure now institutions, they require image in terms of the research governed institutions. Okay, I mean their ranking, their accreditation is nowadays based on the research quality of researchers and quantity of researchers they produce. Okay, and how much they involve their faculties, their PhD scholars and the other research scholars. Okay, in terms of research developments in institutions. So institutions, universities, colleges. Okay, so they all nowadays become research centers, and they all want results in terms of the publications. So it actually added enormous pressure on the faculties and scholar to publish more and more. Otherwise, they will not be given the they may not be fulfilling the degree requirements. Okay, they may not be given increments, even promotions in the job, and they of course they lose their job if they are unable to meet the targets in terms of the number of publications they are required to do in terms of their seniority or the level of the job. So of course this this publish or perish is one of the major reasons, okay, major causes, okay, which is responsible to give rise to this predatory publishers. Okay, it gives rise to these predatory publishers. So we have to understand, okay, this point. And then the second trend that evolved from this publish or perish, when it evolves, then we see the rise of many open access journals. Okay, and then there was a window, pay and publish. If you can pay, your paper can be published. Okay, so these two factors, if we analyze in the research history, we find these are two major factors responsible for this unethical the unethical publication practices. Okay, so let's see, we can see that these are the two factors. Okay, publish or perish and pay and publish have been the major responsible factors for unethical publication practice, and they're also the factors those who nurtured these predatory publishers, and and we see the great development in terms of the predatory publications. Okay, so now let's try to understand, when you are a first researcher, okay, you need to understand how to differentiate between the academic journals, okay, and from those predatory journals. Okay, so academic journals, they play a vital role in disseminating new knowledge and publishing new researchers to develop societies in general and research communities in particular. Okay, so good academic quality journal, they respect the methods, scientific methods, they regard the science. Okay, they regard the purity of the process. Okay, ethics in the publication process. Okay, they give proper training to their reviewers, editors, okay, and publishers. They actually add some value of the research in the society, okay, that are committed to the new research and development, which are real and meaningful for the social development, okay. So the journals maintain research integrity. Such journals, which are academic journals, scholarly journals, reputed journals, they maintain research integrity and intellectual honesty in its structure, okay. From the their policies, guidelines, everything is very transparent if you go to the pages, okay. Then they have the stringent editorial practices with the strong editorial board and peer review system, okay, rendered these journals authentic and therefore trusted among researchers. While we see the rise of predatory journals, okay, the publish or Paris cost, pay and publish model and allowed predatory journals to give birth unethical publication practices. So Bell calls this pay and publish model as predatory publishing, okay, and then Bell further argues that this model has destroyed the very purpose of open access publishing, which is to provide free access of researchers to the research community. We will be discussing in great detail about the open access publishing in our next lecture, but here we have to understand the focus on this open access publishing, because open access publishing has a great purpose, okay, to give the access to the whole research community on the research resources, so that we can have a free open resources available for researchers to develop more and more in the research developments, and so that society can be benefited, research community can be benefited. But this purpose somehow has been greatly damaged by these predatory journals. Now let's try to understand the various definitions, okay, possible. And these definition defines the nature of predatory journals. So according to Committee on Publication Ethics, okay, COPE, open access, they are journals for profit, and they don't have an expert peer review, okay, and they have the questionable editorial oversight, okay. Editors are themselves involved attracting authors and researchers, okay, to for publications, okay. They send them emails, okay, and then they start charging from them. So that's where we have to understand incompetent editorial board is involved with these journals, okay. And according to A. Grodniewicz, okay, and until there's some scholars who define predatory journal in terms that these journals prioritize their self-interest at the expense of scholarship. They they have the false and misleading information on their web pages, if you go right, deviating from best editorial and publication practices. When you see the predatory journal pages, you find several mistakes, okay, in terms of the grammar and the language. You find the misleading details, okay, no contact number you find, okay, so you will have all the false details on such pages of this predatory journals, okay. Jeffrey Well, he defines predatory journals in terms of the counterfeit journals who those exploit open access model in which authors pay and publishers are dishonest and lack transparency, okay. So we have to understand the very point of open access publishing is that in case author should not pay, and the resource should be available to the research community. Now let's try to understand the efforts of Cabell's, okay, that's the analytical company, okay. Cabell's, the first who prepared a blacklist of predatory journals, okay. So they worked on the Bell's list of predatory journals, okay, and this Cabell's is a scholarly analytic company, okay. So based on Bell's list of predatory journals, the scholarly analytics company Cabell's International launched the journal blacklist, okay. This blacklist, okay, includes more than 12,000 such journals, okay, so far, okay, and the number is increasing gradually day by day, okay. So one of the scholar called Simon Lenacre, okay, Simon Lenacre quotes that unless researchers learn to spot the signs of what predatory publishing looks like, okay, they will continue to get drawn in and waste their research funding dollars and even career on deceptive publishing practices. So of course, Simone Lena Cray emphasized on this point that there is the need of the training. All these scholars, first researchers must be trained in terms of choosing the right kind of journals. In terms of having the the identification of the academic journals, and they can easily differentiate between the academic and the predatory journals. So such kind of training is of course required these days. Let's try to understand some identification of such predatory journals. So Bells defines some informative characteristics. Defining these predatory journals. So such journals follow unethical structure, practices and procedures. So what they do, they hijack the title and website of reputed academic journals. They use the misleading and catchy words. So Bells, he defines some informative characteristics. He clearly defines such journals follow unethical structure, editorial board, reviewers, they are incompetent, and they have the unethical practices and procedures. The purpose is simply to make money, from the researchers. So what they do, they hijack the title and website of reputed academic journals. They use the misleading and catchy words like international, global, Asian, American, etc. So without having any research scope, they also engage all kind of scholars, multidisciplinary researchers, sort of publication. Without having such scope and editorial board, they actually attract the researchers only for the money, and they provide this kind of bogus and predatory publications. So they are the club variety of subjects and make journals multidisciplinary to attract academically pressurized scholars to publish anyways. So let's try to understand further. If you just analyze the web pages of such predatory journals, what you see, there are no contact details of publisher or editor provided. And then you see the false locations of the offices of the publishers and editors are given. There you see the lack of information on the editorial board members. Then you see the lack of information about the frequency of periodicals, journals, serials. Again, you find that fraudulent or improper use of ISSN information and logos of standard publishers are there. Many editors are unaware of the inclusion of their names on editorial boards. Even these journals send the emails for the membership of editorial board. So these are the identifying characteristics according to Bells to just understand which are the predatory journals. And then we have to understand some other indicators of predatory publishing according to COPE. So COPE defines that such journals are incomplete, giving incomplete or misleading reporting of policies, including copyright and user licenses, processes, personal performance and affiliations in the journal's website, correspondence. We see all the incomplete and misleading informations are given in terms of these all factors of the journal publishing. Then again we see the poor language uses. We see the including poor grammar, spelling mistakes, low production quality. We see both in the presentation of the journal's description and guidelines. And in some of the articles that are published, they even don't check for any kind of quality sort of things in the development of the paper processing. The lack of ethics policies and the need for ethics declarations, particularly related to animal and human studies. We find the lack of ability for articles to be retrieved on electronic platforms, or for articles to be retrieved at all despite being. So we have to understand, when we see these journals, such predatory journals, they lack in terms of this kind of factors. They lack software, they lack proper information for research publications. So no contact details of publisher or editors are provided. Okay, so these are the factors we have to understand. We see in terms of the predatory journals. Okay, so now let's try to understand how we can identify unethical publishing practices. Okay, so first of all, we see such journals have the low quality content. Okay, we see plagiarized research work is published. Okay, typographical errors are there, high acceptance rate you see in such journals. Okay, they're completely paid publications and they give you quick publication in 48 hours, 72 hours you see. And then you find the fraudulent review and editorial board decision process. Okay, they don't mean anything for the review process and the process. Okay, then you see the spam emails are sent to authors. Okay, that you are invited to contribute a paper. Okay, your research is very wonderful and you have to contribute a paper like that, and they have the fake editorial board. Okay, and most of the predatory journals you will find they are multidisciplinary, no alignment. Okay, you see with the aims and scope of the journals. Okay, these all things are they are purposefully made. Okay, and they are the unethical publishing practices. Okay, and they actually attract the gullible researchers and the faculties, because they are under pressure, they go for the publication quickly. Now let's try to understand further. There are many other features. Okay, so what these journals show in terms of fake indexing and research database. Okay, so we see and they maintain the false, fake and non-existent impact factor. Okay, and their impact factors is unscientifically calculated. Okay, then you see the false claims of indexes in standard word recognized indexing database. Okay, and then you see the substandard indexing like Copernicus and other indexing they use. Okay, to attract the such scholars. Okay, even sometimes they say Scoopus, but when you see on the Scoopus website, scoopus.com, then you don't find such journals. Okay, these kind of misleading information they provide to attract the certain faculties. Now, the types of predatory journals we have to understand. Okay, so shoddy and sham journals. Okay, such journals having all characteristics and unethical features mentioned above. Okay, in such journals we see all such characteristics are there. Okay, so there is another type which is called hijack journals. What this kind of predatory journal they do, they are very difficult to recognize as they mimic the standard publication in name, logo and website. Okay, they look as good as the standard legitimate journals are. Okay, that's very difficult to locate these hijack journals, and that's where the UGC care list is a very very good resource to make this distinction, because they have provided a list of such journals, those who have mimicked and hijacked the original journals. Then we see the cloned type of journals. Okay, they are online dubious versions of print only authentic journals. Okay, here the names and ISN if any are the same. Okay, and then we see the crony publishing. Okay, institutional publication which editorial board members and a majority of the authors are from the same institutes. Okay, and then across a majority of the issues of the periodical, editorial misconduct by editors and their associate reviewers, group of friends and from either the same or different institutions are on board of review. That's crony publishing we have to understand. Okay, so these all forms and types of journals are predatory journals. So here we have to understand there are some universities where in the research community they commit such kind of predatory practices. Okay, by opening a journal they become reviewers, and it becomes the editorial board member, and then they start this kind of predatory publication practices. That's really bad, and there we have to realize the training of the research ethics at the very early stages when a researcher actually starts the conducting research. Okay, now let's try to understand the consequences and implication of predatory journals. Okay, so predatory journals they publish for article processing charges. Okay, without any quality checks. Okay, and scientific peer review process. Okay, That's a very important thing. Okay, they are only publishing for money without maintaining any kind of qualitative review system. Okay, and then so researchers in the biomedicine, biotechnology, pharmacy, healthcare, and social media in such journals create serious problems for researchers, medical practitioners, and doctors who practice on such research information. That's really seriously, this is a very important point. We have to understand. Look, that researchers in the healthcare, okay, I've been emphasizing on this point. Okay, in drug testing, clinical trials. Okay, in biomedicine. Okay, so we have to understand these researchers are very important. Okay, for the social health issues. Okay, and they are the researchers which actually directly make an impact to the society. Okay, and this kind of predatory publishing, those who are not even reviewing scientifically the data, the process, the trials, they are not even concerned about the ethical committee approvals. They are not even concerned about the how the experiment has been conducted, how the trial has been made, what kind of procedure has been followed. They are simply concerned about the money and publishing these papers. And somehow, if they are clone papers, that's serious. That's really serious. If there's a clone journal and such research is published, okay, which is in the area of medical science, healthcare. So of course, a scholar won't be able to recognize whether it's clone or not. Then seriously we require to understanding of these predatory journals. What will happen then? The researcher would use that information for his or her research or in any medical procedure, and that can have the grave consequences in terms of the health issues in society. So we need to be very serious about this predatory publishing, and we need to be very serious about the clone journals. Okay, so researchers must have this kind of training, especially to make this distinction between the academic journals and the predatory journals and clone journals. Okay, because these areas are really very serious areas where this kind of predatory publishing can do some serious damages. Okay, so predatory publishing, actually what the great damage it did, it actually fails the very purpose of research and developments for the society at large. So what the great damage this predatory publishing do, we have understood that it fails the very purpose of research and development for the society at large, because research development of course is meant to benefit the society, to improve the quality of life of the society. So other consequences we can see, the unscientific and unethical practices affect scientific researchers. Okay, and then we see it damages institutional reputation and career progress of researchers. Suppose you published in predatory journal, okay, later on it proved, I mean it is it is very much, you come to know that it's a predatory publication, so your research goes in vain. Okay, institutional funding, energy, money, they all go in waste. Okay, so we have to understand it's of course loss of money, time, energy, and resource wastage. So we have to identify the predatory journals in terms of what kind of checklist we can take, okay, before we choose any journal. So first of all thing, ISSN, okay, should be verified by researchers from the ISSN providing agencies or from some secondary sources. Okay, you can check clearly. Okay, if they are mentioning the Scopus or the SCI, you must check the other resources like scopus.com. You can check. Okay, then you can check through Web of Science. Okay, and these are resources. You can check through the even directory of open access journals. Okay, you can even go through the cabals. Okay, the blacklisted journals. Okay, so these are very important sources where you have to identify predatory journals. Okay, you can even identify through publisher addresses, editor addresses. Okay, so address can be verified from secondary sources such as Google Map or similar online searches. Okay, then you have to understand about the impact factor. Okay, you can verify impact factor with journal citation reports by Clarivate Analytics. Okay, that's a very good resource to identify and verify the sources. Okay, then you must check the indexing databases. Okay, check authenticity of the databases. You can the contact details, journal inclusion criteria. Okay, you can check on the Google Scholar. Okay, aggregators, library catalogs or not indexing databases. Okay, so you have to understand the point that cut. So after checking the indexing databases, we must understand the what are not the indexing databases. Okay, of course Scopus, Web Science and SCI, they are the indexing databases, but what are not the indexing databases like Google Scholar, aggregators, library catalogs, they are not the indexing databases. Okay, so we have to understand these predatory journals in terms of checklist. I told you in terms of the ISN number, addresses, and then scopus.com, okay, Web Science, okay, and the other DOAJ, okay, Directory of Page Journal, Access Sources, Campbell's Blacklist Journal. These are some steps you must take before choosing the journal. You must inquire deeply before you select a journal for a publication to avoid any predatory publication. Okay. Now let's try to understand further what we need to check as a research scholar. Okay, so we should check the credibility of editors. Okay, credibility can be checked with the publications of editor-in-chief and editorial board members in respectable journals. Okay, publication is short duration of time. Okay, always check dates of submission, acceptance of paper. You see that a paper is accepted a day before, 2 days before, and is published. Okay, then these such journals actually they attract all the scholarly faculties, and they mention that publication will be done within the 48 hours. So we have to check these all all these terms and all these conditions. Okay, which are really showing the characteristics of predatory journals. Okay, so we have to again check the journal archives. Okay, volumes. Okay, availability of the archives can be checked. Okay, so we can also check the annual listing of reviewers. Does the journal publish a list of reviewers in the annual issue number? Okay, and these all the important features we must check, and we must make a checklist before we go for a publication and choosing a journal for publication. Okay, so let's try to understand further. Okay, why scholars publish in predatory journal? That's very important question. Okay, here, so we have analyzed so far that the what are the causes. Okay, and what are the motivations even can say. Okay, so the causes are the very straight, is that there is a fear of job loss. Okay, these days, because it is based on your competence in research. Okay, institution image is based on competence of research. So actually institutions are based on the scholars and faculties. So all the pressures come on the scholars and faculties, and then there we have to understand the publish and perish is the major factor. Okay, for this kind of developments in the last 2 decades in terms of predatory journals. Okay, then we have to understand another point is that if researcher is trying to publish, okay, and somehow is not getting success in good journals. Okay, then they choose some low quality journals. Okay, they realize this failure. Okay, in terms of publishing in quality journals, and they have the competition to publish also, right? So in the competition they sometimes choose the low quality journals, and they are the predatory journals. Okay, so here we see there is a respect. Okay, they don't respect the research ethics, and sometimes they have the lack of informations and lack of awareness in faculty members and scholars. They're simply attracted by the they want anyhow the publications, and they simply want publication as soon as possible. They don't check information, they don't try to investigate into the quality of the journals. Okay, and they go for the publication. Okay, so we see the mandatory publications for career advancements. Okay, these days we see that there's a mandatory requirements for scholars or the faculties to publish. Okay, in terms of the promotion, in terms of the sustenance of job, in terms of the increment, and sometimes it is about the respect of the scholar. Okay, so more publication adds you more respect in the research community, and sometimes it becomes also a factor. Researchers are attracted to the predatory publishing. So let's try to understand the predatory publishing, how it exists in India and at abroad. Okay, so let's try to understand through this, the journal blacklist. Let's try to analyze this data. Okay, so we see the point here. Okay, so when we analyze through this journal blacklist, okay, through this Cabell's, okay, scholarly analytics, okay, so we see that there's more than 400,000, okay, number of scientists worldwide who those publish in predatory journals, okay, since 2013. That's the big number. Okay, then we see more than 10,000 number of predatory journals currently listed in Cabell's journal blacklist. Okay, then we see further the more than 50,000 number of experts claimed by omics to be reviewing online publication as editors. Okay, omics is again a predatory fraud. This journal is registered in India. Okay, Srini Babu. We will discuss this case study further. Okay, so we see again that 380 number of omics editors serving with a proof of consent. They are working for predatory journals. Okay, and then we see more than 300 number of predatory publisher in India. That's big number. We have to understand. Okay, and that's where serious actions has been taken by the UGC also. Okay, that regard, and there is a sign of great development in that way. We will be discussing further. Okay, so we see that 1500 number of predatory journals active today in Hyderabad alone. So let's see, predatory publishing in India, that's also seriously affecting. We see 310 publishers and 1500 number of predatory journals active today in Hyderabad alone. So that's by the Cabell's resource. We analyze how the editorial boards are involved, how the publishers are involved. Okay, how the scientists are involved. Okay, and how the companies are involved in this predatory publication business. Okay, I should say completely commercial business practice. Okay, that has attracted all the scientists. Okay, all the even some scholars. Okay, learned people. Okay, and that's where we need to understand how serious damage it has been doing to the quality research publication, to the established academic journals, those who may have maintained the respectful scientific researchers in society. So this this data is actually really very serious. Okay, we have to understand the way we have analyzed how predatory publishing is strengthening, it's growing in the research community, and let's try to understand this this picture is published in Nature. Okay, so let's try to understand the way it has been depicted in this picture. Okay, you see how this dragon is showing the predatory publications where these all researchers are trying. Okay, they're cutting. Okay, the way we have analyzed, the reviewer, scientist, everybody is involved, is in kind of. Okay, so let's see transparency. Okay, and this open review. Okay, so all the values and principles, they are simply cutted in that kind of publication practices. So this image actually suits the way this dragon is extending, okay, broadly across the whole world and damaging the research community. Okay, and how the learned people are involved in this kind of practices, that we need to understand seriously the value of the research ethics at the early stage of the career, how we need to train a fresh researcher. That's the very need of the hour. So let's try to understand a major fraudulent predatory publisher who was registered from India. Okay, so in 2018, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission won $50 million ruling against the publisher Omics. Okay, for deceptive business practices. The Federal Trade Commission's investigations found that omics accepted and published nearly 69,000 articles in academic disciplines with little or no peer review. That's a huge number, 69,000 articles. The specific case of the predatory publishing, fraud from India. Okay, so you see the FTC, the judgment against the infamous publisher located in Hyderabad, India, proved difficult to enforce, but the ensuing stigma still carries a penalty. In the 2 years after the FTC filed its complaint, the articles omics published under its imprint fell by 40%. Okay, so after this, trial and the result of this fine, okay, we see how researchers became informed about this kind of predatory publications. Okay, after all, a publisher with no reputation is preferable to a publisher with a bad one. Okay, so we have to understand this fraud case is a really one of the biggest case in the predatory publishing fraud, and that's why all the research scholars need a really quality training in terms of choosing the right kind of journals. So let's try to analyze big data, okay, in terms of the in this case study, okay, you see total participant number is was 1,872 participants, okay, from 112 countries. Okay, so over 1,800 researchers from diverse disciplines, academic stages and countries gave their perspectives on predatory academic journals and conferences, what they believe, okay, what they feel about that. So we see the participants, okay, were from the North America, 4% participants were there, from Europe 20%, okay, from Middle East we see 3% participants were there, from Central Asia 1%, okay, and then from Asia Pacific 26% participants they gave their opinion, okay. From South Asia we see 15% participants, they gave their opinion, okay, and further we see the South Asian Sahara regions, 14% participant involved in this research, okay, and 15% involved from the Latin America region. Okay, so these all participants have their perspectives on predatory academic journals and conferences. So we have the interesting findings out of this case studies. So over 90%, okay, they think predatory practices should be combated. Okay, they are serious about these kind of practices. Okay, to preserve the integrity and public trust in research. That's a very important point. Okay, so 90% of these all research respondents, okay, believe that we need to have stringent, okay, guidelines for publishers, and we need to have tight regulations. Okay, so we have to protect, okay, the integrity of the research practices, and we have to maintain the public trust in research. Okay, that regarding research, it is to ensure that research informing policy is rigorous. Okay, so we have to have the strict research policies also, okay, in terms of avoiding these kind of publication practices. And over 80% in this case study we see perceive that predatory practices are a serious problem or on the rise in their country of work. Okay, so these researchers, over 80% of the participants, they believe predatory publication has now become a serious problem. Okay, and it is seriously damaging the quality of the research work, seriously damaging even the country's reputation in research work, in research practices. Now there's one more difficulty, okay, when we analyze the predatory journals. Okay, so the assessment is very difficult. Okay, how to define, sometimes there are journals which are very difficult to locate whether they are predatory or not. So in this data analysis we see that Bell's the list is there, okay, and there is a directory of open access journal list is there, and Cabell's also verified this listing. So we see that Bell's list highlighted the issue of predatory journals but faced criticism over transparency and legal threats from listed titles. it ceased operations in 2017. Okay, so we have to understand. And then some journals deemed legitimate by Directory of Open Access Journal were deemed predatory by Bells and other cable list. Okay, so you know, okay, DOA, Directory of Open Access Journal is, and the Bells list and the cables list. We have three resources to understand about the predatory journals. Okay, so again, the Directory of Open Access Journal relies mainly on information from publishers. It regularly purchase titles that do not meet quality criteria. Still, identifying some predatory journals is really difficult. Assessment is difficult because some journals which are not predatory by DOAJ assessment, they are predatory in the Bell's criteria, or they are predatory in the Cabell's analytics. Okay, so scholars need really serious training in identifying the predatory journal publishing. So let's try to understand how India has fought back against predatory publishing. So I've just taken one interview of Professor Patwardhan. Okay, the way he has ensured the developments in the in fighting back to the predatory journals. Okay, so while Indian science, okay, let's try to understand how India has fought back against predatory publishing. Okay, so I've taken one interview remarks, okay, given by Professor Patwardhan. Okay, quote: while Indian science has shown a marked growth in high quality scientific publication, it has also been reported that the percentage of research articles published in predatory journals is high in India. Despite good intentions, the regulatory provisions of UGC seem to have triggered a sudden spurt in predatory journals, giving way to publisher Paris culture. He has mentioned very rightly the very reason of this predatory publication, okay, publisher Paris culture, and an effective monitoring of research quality coupled with separation to publish for regulatory compliance have led to massive growth of predatory publications in India. He has well emphasized that it's a serious problem, okay, because of this publishing Paris culture, and there are certain regulatory compliance. Okay, so we have discussed about the job requirements, career pressure, and other things. Okay, and then the situation is now rapidly changing for good through systematic efforts by the government to promote interinstitutional collaborations and transdisciplinary research, and by creating more awareness regarding academic integrity and publication ethics through initiatives like UGC Care. So of course, UGC has done a great job in terms of the fighting back against these predatory journals. Okay, they started even this course, research and publication ethics, to train the scholars in terms of identifying such journals, developing values and ethics in terms of the research practices. Okay, so of course, in this interview we find the way this problem has been handled seriously by India in terms of the UGC. Has taken stringent measures in terms of checking the publishers' informations. Okay, ensuring the quality of the journal, and then they have prepared this UGC Care List journal. Okay, based on committees and protocols, and let's try to understand further. Okay, so UGC Care has a very specific publishing model. Okay, so any submission of new journal goes through the two different scrutiny channels. Okay, one on in the hand of publishers. Okay, on the other we have the individual. Okay, so we see that there are certain protocols. Okay, based on the basic informations. Okay, on both sides, individual and the publisher. Then it goes through to several channels to pass on, to test and verify with these all kind of quality checks, standard checks, protocol checks, guideline checks. Okay, so first IQSE cell of any college or university, recommended by faculty members, okay, can propose journal. Then it goes to IQSE cell of UGC universities. Okay, That's the protocol 2 primary criteria. Okay, then there's a UGC cell for journal analysis. Okay, UGC care protocol 3rd, that is secondary criteria. Then it enters to the UGC care list. Okay, approval of empowered committee. Okay, and then this journal is included in UGC care list. Okay, so now UGC has developed this different model, stringent model, in order to avoid this predatory journals. Okay, they have developed certain protocols and checks, and only qualifying these all committees protocols. Okay, then only a journal can be listed in UGC. So so far we have discussed about the predatory publishing as a serious problem in research and publication practices, in terms of the ethical violations of the publication practices, in terms of the kind of misconduct in publication practices. So we have discussed unethical publication today in this lecture. We have analyzed what is publishing misconduct. Okay, in terms of not maintaining any qualitative measures in publication process. Okay, in terms of the reviewer board, editorial board. Okay, other technical informations are not maintained by such journals which are predatory journals. So we have understood about the characteristics, formative characteristics of the predatory journals. We try to identify predatory journals. Okay, and we try to understand the difference between the academic journals and the predatory journals. We analyze the nature of predatory journals. Okay, and then we try to understand the challenges because of this predatory journal practices increasing across the whole world. So we try to understand reasons of predatory publishing, how the publish and pay culture has caused this predatory publishing, how pay and publish culture triggered this predatory publishing, and how quick publication, how name, fame, respect, and the all kinds of pressure they have caused. They have given a good opportunity, advantage to these predatory publishers. Okay, to make a serious damage to the research community as a whole. Okay, then in the end we try to understand certain fraud cases. Okay, we analyzed data across the whole world, how researchers perceive predatory publishing, what kind of damages it is doing to research community. We try to understand what kind of fraud took place in India. Okay, and then we analyzed in what ways UGC has done a great job in terms of developing a new publishing model, which is known as the UGC care publishing model. Okay, we try to understand the seriousity of this predatory publishing problem, and accordingly we understood how to avoid predatory publishing, what kind of training we require as a fresh researcher to understand. So we did this all things today in this lecture. So these are the references that I have used for the development of this lecture. These are really good references. Okay, thank you.